Before we start, I want to make it clear that this video is not telling people that you can't enjoy the Fallout show or Bethesda's Fallouts. I will be pointing out a bunch of lore inconsistencies and highlighting why fans of the original games and Fallout New Vegas do not like it, while mostly avoiding the ever so prevalent political narratives that are pushed in the show. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The Fallout show sucks, and no, it's not just bad as a Fallout adaptation. It's a bad show even alone. Though today, we're going to be just focusing on what makes it a bad adaptation. Maybe I'll go back to season 1 one day and pick apart how the show is bad, but who knows if I'll ever want to subject myself to that torture for a second time. The time the bombs drop. In the start of the Fallout show, we see the Ghoul pre-war with his daughter celebrating a birthday party. And this is right before the bombs drop in the show. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think many birthday parties are held at 6 a.m. in the morning. And that's being generous, because in Fallout 4's intro, when the bombs are established to have dropped, which is a Bethesda lore creation, by the way, so they're messing up their own lore with the show. It's not even like the show is messing up stuff from the original Fallouts in this scenario. It's Bethesda retconning their own lore that they established, which is
ironic.
But if we want to be generous and say Fallout 4 happened late in the morning, even though it probably happened around like 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, which would mean the bombs dropped at like 4 a.m. on the West Coast. But even being generous with that assessment, it would still place the time the bombs dropped as 6 or 7 a.m. on the West Coast. Who is having a birthday party at 6 or 7 a.m.? And judging from the weather and stuff, it doesn't look like it's in the morning. The second lore inconsistency, the Brotherhood ranking system. For this section, I'm going to have this picture in the top corner to show the order of the rankings in the Brotherhood of Steel. So it's stated in the start of the show that Maximus is an aspirant, which is someone that is training to become a full member of the Brotherhood. You know, it's a probationary member or recruit, which is also an addition from Bethesda. I don't think that aspirants are in the original Fallouts or Fallout New Vegas. I'm pretty sure it's just initiate, and the initiate becomes either a knight or a scribe. But yeah, he's an aspirant, which, okay, it tracks with Fallout 4's lore. It makes sense. He's an initiate, he became an aspirant, and now he's trying to become a knight. Okay, makes sense, right? Well, later on, when he becomes the, like, I don't know, underling of the knights in the show, because they also made that a thing. They like call each other the initiate calls the knight a lord, which has never been in the games before. It seems like a pointless addition, but okay, whatever. But when they're placed in under, like when they are taken under the wing of a knight, they're given the rank of a squire, which if anyone has played Fallout 4, which is a Bethesda made game, you'd know that squires are children in the Brotherhood. So, and I don't know about you, but Maximus doesn't look like a child. He looks in his 20s. So why is he going from the ranking of an aspirant to the ranking of a squire? That's quite the demotion. But that's not all. For some reason, the way the Brotherhood works in the show, when they're sent out into the fields, it's not in fire teams like it is in Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, Fallout 3. No, they're sent out in duos. A knight and a squire are sent out on missions. Another lore inconsistency is the way Geiger counters work in the show, and partly radiation, because in the first episode, when her husband turns out to be a raider and her Geiger counter picks up 100 rads per second emanating off of her raider husband, she is somehow not melting into a puddle of goop. and neither is he. You know, these levels of radiation, I don't even think a glowing, well, not even, I don't think, I know that not even a glowing feral ghoul gives off this much radiation. And not to mention, if all of these raiders are that irradiated, why was no one else's Pip-Boy picking it up earlier when they were all gathered in the same room? I guess she's not susceptible to radiation, I guess. Is she a mutant? Is she a feral ghoul, but she doesn't have her skin melting off like one? I don't know. So also in episode 1, when Lucy gets stabbed in the stomach, she, instead of, well, first of all, she pulls the knife out, which is, everyone knows if you are impaled by something, the first thing you do should not be just pull it out all willy-nilly and let yourself bleed out. But regardless, she pulls it out, and instead of bandaging it or using any medical equipment, she uses a Stimpak, which at first glance, if you're a casual, you know, Fallout 4 player, maybe you see that and you're like, oh yeah, Stimpaks heal you, of course. But in the lore, the fact that Stimpaks heal you instantly, it's a gameplay mechanic. In the lore, it's just like any other medicine. It helps you recover, but it doesn't just magically, you know, close your wounds. You know, the same reason that in Fallout New Vegas you can get doctor bags and use them to, you know, to instantly heal your crippled limbs. Are we gonna say doctor's bags are magical healing devices? You know? Can someone just pull out a doctor's bag and fix their broken limbs in a TV show? So another retcon in the show is that the Prydwen ship is in the show. Now this causes a few problems, like, I don't know, the Brotherhood has, I guess, infinite power to be able to fuel this giant, you know, however big it is, metal flying, insane ship across the wasteland back and forth, I guess. Just even beyond the logistical complications of hauling the ship back to the west coast. This also indicates that the Fallout 4 ending involving the Brotherhood of Steel, or the Miniman ending in which you do not destroy the Brotherhood, is canon. Unless you believe in 9 years after their destruction, they could have rebuilt the Prydwen and then went across the United States back to the west coast. Their ending is canonized. So yeah, that's not exactly a retcon, but it definitely takes from the games, because, I mean, if you even care about the show being canon, which to be honest, I don't even consider it canon, but playing through like Fallout 4 again and the canon ending is the Brotherhood ending, well, it kind of takes away from the other factions and their endings respectively. The next lore inconsistency, the location of Vault 33. Now I have this map here of where certain points of interest are in Fallout 1, and then also where they are in the show. And credit to Cretosis, because I took this from his video. Link to his channel will be in the description. Alright, so as you can see, never mind Shady Sands or Vault 4 right now, we'll touch on that later, but Vaults 31, 32, and 33 are right next to where the Boneyard is and the Cathedral. And this is important because the Cathedral is where the Master's lair is in Fallout 1. Which, if you guys haven't played Fallout 1, basically a quick synopsis is that the Master wanted to create an army of supermutants, and he went around to vaults to look for humans that had been largely untouched from radiation, and then turn them into supermutants in order to have like a master race supermutant army. So it brings up the issue that Lucy's vault was not attacked by the Master, so he must have just passed it up or didn't know it was there, even though the entrance is pretty obvious. It's not exactly a hidden vault. So yeah, I'd chalk that up to a lore inconsistency. Also, Lucy seemingly exits where the Boneyard would be, yet we see no trace of the Boneyard anywhere, and it seemingly doesn't even exist in the TV show. To go further on that point, Vault 4, which is also very close to the Master's lair, also was untouched by the Master. And while the excuse can be made that he didn't kidnap the inhabitants of Vault 4 because they were, you know, having experiments done on them that made them into mutants, which makes them unsuitable for the FEV project or whatever, But we see in the games that even the civilizations that weren't suitable to turn their people into super mutants, he still wiped out clean. He killed them or kidnapped them to do other tasks. So it makes zero sense that he would leave Vault 4. And once again, Vault 4 is even more obvious and in the open than Lucy's Vault. So this makes absolutely no sense that they would pass it up. So why is it here? The seventh lore inconsistency is the hyper-religious take on the Brotherhood. We see in the show members of the Brotherhood doing like sorceries or like witchcraft, which has never been a thing in the show. Like they don't worship technology and to my knowledge don't really worship anything. They hoard technology in order to stop humanity from acquiring the means for another nuclear holocaust or anything like that. And also, where are the paladins? You know, we only see initiates, which are called squires, knights, and I think we saw a few scribes. I might be mistaken. I think we did. But where are the paladins? You know, where are the sentinels that were added in Fallout 4 even? All of this stuff is absent. They've totally butchered the Brotherhood of Steel, made it into something that it absolutely is not in any of the games. The next lore inconsistency is a Brotherhood of Steel soldier asking, or I guess stating his surprise of the Enclave being real, which is totally insane considering the Brotherhood of Steel fought the Enclave like not too long ago at all. And if you want to take Bethesda's new addition into Fallout 4 as canon, that you know the Enclave randomly came back.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And even if the Fallout 4 Enclave isn't canon, wouldn't they be teaching their new members about the Enclave and the NCR and all the people that they fought? It makes no logical sense that this Brotherhood soldier wouldn't know who the Enclave are. This one's pretty self-explanatory. There's an Assaultron on the West Coast. Obvious that the showrunners are appeasing the Fallout 4 and, you know, new gen fans. They're like, oh, hey, look, an Assaultron. Even though it makes no sense that an Assaultron would be on the West Coast because they're not in any of the West Coast games. The next lore inconsistency is the Superman capabilities that Power Armor has now, I guess. And we'll see more of that later. I'm going to mention something else a little later. But right now, it's the superhuman strength that it gives you. We see Maximus throw, I think it was a brick. I don't know. I'll have it on screen so you can see it. But I think it's like a brick that he throws. And it goes, I don't know, like 3 freaking miles into the water, into the like lake. And then he kicks a little rock and it totally destroys this building that he kicks it into. What? When has that ever been established in lore? And by the way, I said I was going to focus on lore inconsistencies with the games, but I'm going to include this little tidbit in here. This scene is inconsistent with the show because Titus was boxing the Yaogwai when realistically, from what we were just shown with Maximus throwing the brick and destroying the fucking, excuse my language, the building with a pebble that he kicked, the Yaogwai should have like had its internal organs like liquefied from one punch. So like, what is going on here? We can't even be consistent with the scene that happened right before this one. Like, we just saw Titus fight the Yaogwai. Apparently, ghouls, or at least the ghoul, is invincible. He gets riddled with bullets in the scene where he's fighting at the town and just walks it off. Even though later in the show we see a ghoul die. So supposedly it's if they get shot in the head. So it's like classic zombie stereotypes. You know, you shoot the zombie in the head, except for ghouls aren't actually zombies. And in the games, it's never established that it's you have to kill them with a headshot. And I'm pretty sure in one of the original Fallout games, it makes fun of this concept too. Like it's a joke. So when Maximus and Thaddeus are tracking down the ghoul, Thaddeus pulls out this little radiation tracker gun, I guess, and it tracks radiation trails. And apparently it picks up the radiation trail left by the ghoul. What are we doing here? It's a radioactive wasteland. How is it picking up the radiation trails from the ghoul? Everything is irradiate. You know, the level of just stupidity from these showrunners is insane. The ghouls need medicine to not go feral now. Dude, what? I mean, this goes without saying, it's never mentioned in the games. Not a thing. Only in the show. And, okay, well, let's get this straight. There are non-feral ghouls in the games and in the show that are pre-war ghouls, including the ghoul in the show. He was a person pre-war. So, the logical conclusion you have to make is that, for one, the ghouls in the games, I guess, are secretly taking it and they never tell you about it. And two, that they were producing the cure to feralization before the war, despite ghouls not being a thing pre-war. Like, is this making sense to you guys? And because the medicine would not have been made instantly after the war happened, which means all of the ghouls that became ghoulified when the bombs dropped would have turned feral. The only non-feral ghouls would be the ones that have been ghoulified after the creation of the medicine, which the main character, the main ghoul of the show, didn't. He was a pre-war ghoul, so why is he not feral? Can they last a really long time without the medicine? Don't think so, because we see in the show that he is like collapsing and he has to regularly divert to go and get more medicine to stop his feralization. This one doesn't really require an explanation that much. There are Gulpers on the west coast, and they explain it later that they came from a vault and that it was some weird experiment that a woman was giving birth to little Gulpers. Like, what, bro? Like, what? It's like a classic Bethesda retcon. Like West-Tec making super mutants before the war to explain why super mutants are on the East Coast. It really adds a lot to the show, right? They couldn't have introduced any level of different creatures onto the West Coast, or even used an existing creature that's on the West Coast. Nope, they had to add a Gulper from Fallout 4. Okay, awesome. So this one is either a retcon, or if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, it's because the Brotherhood in the show is the Brotherhood from the East Coast. And I'm inclined to give that to them, okay? So this canonizes the fact that the Brotherhood that we see in the show is Maxon's brother, the one from Fallout 4, not the original Maxon. So that even further canonizes the Brotherhood Fallout 4 ending, or the Minutemen ending, like I said prior. And it means they brought the T-60 power armor from the West Coast. Which, even that being the case, I mean, where's the other power armor? Another lore inconsistency. And I'll probably include this point into the same category as when I'm talking about Shady Sands being nuked. But they moved where Shady Sands is. It's no longer further north. Now it's closer to like the Boneyard. Alright. Probably one of the biggest retcons in the show, and the thing that most people, or a lot of the people that don't like the show, are upset about. The NCR's destruction. So we see from a chalkboard in, what's the Vault 4, I think? Let me make sure it's Vault 4. Yeah. So Vault 4, they open their doors to a bunch of Shady Sands refugees, which we learn earlier in the show that Shady Sands was new. And supposedly, now from this chalkboard, and from the lack of NCR personnel seen in the show, because it's very unlikely that if the NCR was still around, they wouldn't reestablish dominance over the region, or even have dominance over it already, even if the town got nuked. Because they have a ton of different like towns and territory around Shady Sands. They wouldn't just leave if the city got nuked, you know? It makes no sense, but regardless, Shady Sands got nuked. The NCR is gone. Some people cope and say, oh, well, the NCR isn't gone. It's just Shady Sands that got destroyed. And look, they might go back on it and introduce them later. But, I mean, okay. Maximus was in Shady Sands. We see that from the stupid, I hid in the fridge and survived the nuke, even though literally the back fan of the fridge is open, so I would have died anyway. But he was a member of the NCR. He was in Shady Sands. And when they come across the Shady Sands sign, they talk about the NCR, him and Lucy. because Lucy's upset that the reclamation of America happened without her. And that's important. They're talking about the NCR as a civilization, not just the city of Shady Sands, okay? And Maximus verbatim says, if it makes you feel any better, it didn't work out. Boom. Nail in the coffin, the NCR is gone. It's destroyed, right? We see later it's only the remnants that are basically raiders. They're gone. So all of the NCR copium from idiots that still like the show and they want to be in denial about, you know, the obvious ruination of the games. There you go. It's flat out said. It didn't work out. The NCR is gone. So now we got that established, let's point out why Shady Sands getting nuked and the NCR disappearing makes no sense at all. Here's a map of the NCR and all of its territory. As you can see, it's pretty big, right? Now think logically, if Shady Sands got nuked, all of the other states of the NCR and the territories claimed, do you think they would just fall apart? Just you destroy one city and then all of a sudden the entire thing crumbles? I don't, like, that's highly illogical. And it's key to point out that the nuking of Shady Sands happened in 2277. Look, they went back on it and said, oh, Shady Sands was having problems in 2277 and it actually got nuked sometime after that. It's like, that's not how timelines work. The arrow obviously is pointing to an illustration of what is mentioned prior. That's how these kind of timelines work. Okay, the fact that it was two separate things is complete copium, and why would it not be dated? You think if they're making a timeline of all the events and then they had the nuking of Shady Sands, they wouldn't slap a date on it? I mean, are we serious? That is like the most insane copium I've ever heard. It is never mentioned in Fallout New Vegas that Shady Sands has been nuked. That is 100% a retcon. And look, now they're going back on it, but that doesn't change the fact that that's how they wrote it in the show. So another retcon to do with the NCR in the show is the fact that they have literal skyscrapers in the flashback that we see of Shady Sands. And at first glance, maybe the average person is like, oh, they just built a civilization in the ruins of old world skyscrapers, right? Well, take a look at what Shady Sands was in the original Fallout games. So this is Shady Sands in Fallout 2. This will be in 2241. Fallout show takes place in 2296. Do you think they would turn this into skyscrapers in 50 years? I don't know. I find that very unlikely. Just because the NCR is the largest known population in the wasteland doesn't mean that they're not vastly underpopulated compared to modern day societies. You can look at like America in the modern era and like, oh, it took them like 50 years to advance to skyscrapers too. The population of the NCR ranges like around 900,000 to like 1.2 million. What would they even really need skyscrapers for? And not even just in comparison to modern nations, even compared to the amount of land that the NCR occupies, they are still vastly underpopulated compared to that. So why would they have the need to build giant skyscrapers in Shady Sands? It just doesn't make feasible sense. The next lore inconsistency is how the TV show explains the Vault-Tec experiments as Vault-Tec wanting to rebuild civilization under its own control, because they want to optimize humans and decide who inhabits the future to have a monopoly on capitalism because reasons. When in the games, the reason for the Vault-Tec experiments was solely driven by the Enclave. Okay, they were responsible for it. The Vault-Tec experiments were government funded directly from the Enclave. And we see in the games, you know, the Enclave inherits the research and FEV data that the Vault-Tec experiments gained from conducting experiments on the dwellers. So this whole shift into a capitalism sucks message is totally inconsistent with the games. And look, I'm not totally against them pushing whatever political ideology they want. I mean, I might disagree with it, but the problem here is that they're rewriting the lore to accommodate it. You know, there is a million other things they could have done to push the anti-capitalist message, but they choose already established lore to muck up to do that. Another lore inconsistency that is prevalent in the show is that Vault-Tec launched the nukes. Now we know this is not true because in Fallout 2 it's outright confirmed that China launched the nukes. President Richardson says verbatim, and I'll show the screenshot up here right now, we were winning too, and then those damn Reds launched. We barely got our birds up. And while people might say President Richardson and the Enclave is an unreliable source because they're hyper-American nationalists, makes zero sense because what reason would they have to lie 160 years after the war when most people probably don't even remember what happened, why the war happened, and most probably don't even care at this point. Another retcon that was added in is that the T-45 has a major flaw apparently now that you can one-shot. You shoot in a specific spot and it just kills the person you're shooting, which makes zero sense because it's never in any of the games, of course, never mentioned, even though it seems like a pretty big deal. If a suit of armor has a weakness that is that crucial. Even the Ghoul pre-war, he says, that flaw cost a lot of good men their lives in Anchorage, in Alaska. Yet, it's never mentioned in the games at all. Like, that seems like a pretty big deal. And not to mention that in gameplay, you never get like one shot unless, and I mean, that could be described away as the gameplay mechanics. So I'm not harping too much on the fact that it doesn't happen in gameplay, but the fact that it's never mentioned in lore anywhere, that's a pretty big glaring lore inconsistency. And the final, yet I guess not too big of a lore retcon, like to explain because it's pretty cut and dry. The ending shot of New Vegas, it looks nothing like New Vegas in the game. I'll show what it looks like in the show right here. Then I'll also show gameplay of Fallout New Vegas and what the surroundings of New Vegas looks like. Thank you so much for watching this video to the end. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And if you didn't like the video and you want to let me know how much you hate my opinions, also leave a comment and I'll read your comment and reply. And not to worry, I will be continuing making video essays. I've just been experimenting with these type of free flow rant-esque videos, but I'll still be making video essays. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. And as always, don't you dare go hollow.
What about using a vault to develop a super mutant soldier?
Using a legal